You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Game Corner. My name is Kieran Calcone and we have someone new joining us today, Ray Kearney, who very graciously reached out to us online. He is a software developer and games master. How are you doing today, Ray?
How you doing, Kieran? Nice to be here.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for giving up your time. You actually reached out to us with quite a substantial list of games. So you've been kind of doing video games and online games and board games, RPGs for a very long time, haven't you?
Quite a while. I went into college second time, did games development and software engineering. So that kind of instilled a like of not just video games, but card games and RPGs and traditional board games and all that kind of stuff. So it's all about having fun. And the ones where like you get a group of people together around the table and have a couple of beers and sit back and waste 2 or 3 hours. They're my favorites.
I know exactly what you mean. Before we started recording off the air, you mentioned that before the lockdown started, you were running something in the area of 10 to 14 kind of game sessions a month or something like that. That must take a huge amount of scheduling and coordination. Like,
it takes a lot of scheduling. Like, and I wouldn't be running all of them. Most of the games I probably run maybe say once every 2 weeks. There's like 1 or 2 of the longer running games we've been going so like every week for the last couple of years. Some of the games I'll run them just once a month on a weekend, maybe 3 to 4 hours kind of thing. Just as an excuse to get some old college friends that I haven't seen in a while to bring them around the house or me to go around to their house. And then I'll play in like 1 or 2 as well. So that involves me going to some of my other mates' houses of an evening and just sitting around for 3 hours and make up stuff.
well, that's exactly it. It's a great way to kind of meet people and it's a great icebreaker. Like, I mean, I used to do a lot of these RPGs with my friends from drama college and they found that just the improvising and the thinking on the spot and all that kind of stuff, it's really great to create a group atmosphere, isn't it?
It's the fact of like, it's such an easy way to unwind because you just get to sit around for the next 3 hours pretending you're somebody else for a bit. And kind of, it doesn't matter what stupid stuff that person gets into. You know, you can, if you're the kind of guy who likes making puns, your character can make puns and no one's kind of looking at you and giving you those kind of, you know, rolling their eyes back in the head because it's their characters they're doing, but you can make all the bad puns you want, you know.
So you could say it's like, in a way, it's you can kind of be a little bit anonymous inside your character. Like you can do things you wouldn't normally do out in the world or in the workplace, that kind of stuff.
Exactly, yeah. It's just kind of like it's like a release on that valve. So like there's friends of mine that are say stressful jobs and like say or working for the civil service and all that and being able to just kind of put all that aside and now I'm a barbarian dwarf and I just want to crush goblin skulls, or now I'm playing a hyper intelligent wizard and I just want to blow people up with fireballs. It's just a bit of fun. And then there's other friends of mine that like they're really big into Star Wars and all that. So there's a couple of Star Wars RPGs where you can and especially with the rise of like the Mandalorian and all that, it allows them to kind of, you know, be the kind of superheroes in space and play up your space wizard and throw people around with the force and all that, you know.
Yes, I believe my brother has that one actually. You can sort of really build a game to be any alien you like, any Jedi, any bounty hunter. Like it's very customizable, isn't it? Like
very customizable, and there's like 100 different aliens you could be, and you like a lot of people want to play the big, real awkward ones like the Hutts and the Chevin who are just like massive noses, you know. So
Well, I imagine that's part of the appeal, though. It's like you could be like a Hutt bounty hunter and do something really outlandish you'd never see in the cartoons or the movies or anything like.
That's very much it, like, you know. And at the end of the day, it's just you're for a lot of people who, like, if you don't write, or you don't, like, say have another kind of creative outlet, this is kind of like it's almost like a group story that's being created, you know, because at the end of the day, the games master or the DM, the guy who's running it, he's just another player in the game, you know. So it's, you might have 4 players and the GM, but the GM is having just as much fun at the table as the other 4 players have. It's just that he might be kind of reining things in a bit more with the rules and all that, or deciding to I'll let that one slide. That was a really cool moment.
Excellent. Well, I want to back up a bit because some of our listeners might not be fully clued into what an RPG is. So, in a nutshell, and I know this is a big ask, what is a role-playing game to someone who may not have played it before?
So, what are the common elements of a role-playing game? Most of them involve you creating a character. Like in anything like Skyrim or something, you'll create your character, you'll say what it looks like, what its stats are. Is it a fighter? Is it a sneaky kind of guy? Is it a wizard? In any of the pen and paper ones, you do that, but it's like, it's all numbers on a sheet or just like words as you describe them. It doesn't make a difference if it's D&D or Warhammer or Star Wars. It's you're going to have a sheet with your kind of your numbers, you know. And then after that point, it's like you decide why your character is doing what he's doing, why he's out in space hunting bounties, why he's off in the back hills of some fairy tale land hunting goblins. You know, you kind of, you figure out why your guy left a very kind of easy life as a farmer or tradesman and became an adventurer. Why did she decide to pick up the sword and go fight dragons? Or why did they decide to deal with nobles and for pay when they could have become a tradesman, become a carpenter, you know? So that's, you set your background in place. After that, then it all becomes on the kind of the will of the dice, because the dice will add that layer of randomness to it. So you decide, I want to persuade that person to give me a discount on something. And you might have pretty decent skills in the ability to haggle or kind of charm somebody or whatever stats that they're using. You'll pick that skill that you want to roll on. And that might give you a number, and then you roll a dice, and the dice will add that layer of variance to things, which says, and the GM then equates that to some other number that he's thinking of, and it becomes a thing of like, did you succeed? Did you fail? Maybe you succeeded, but other things happened, or maybe you failed, but it wasn't too bad, and you get a little bit extra. And there's all this whole range of outcomes that it can be, and then that's where the kind of the narration plays out, because how do you want to visualize how that came about? You get me? And that's where a lot of the fun comes then. And the failures are just as important as the successes, because it's like throwing a spanner into the works causes great, you know, people start thinking on their feet, and what do we do now? Oh no, that messed up. We need to do something else. What's plan B? Plan C, you know?
I know exactly what you mean. So, like, the process of discovery is sort of where any RPG starts, because I know a lot of people who've kind of heard of like the likes of D&D and that kind of stuff, but they've been intimidated by the front load of things you need to learn to get into it. Do you know where I'm coming from?
And there is an element of that, but say there's an element of that in anything. Like if you showed your mother, like, say, the latest Final Fantasy game, and go, here's a controller, go play that. There's a massive amount of front loaded there as well. It's like, okay, how do I move? Where do I go here? There's a lot of rules that they need to understand to get into that game as well. It's just, it seems a lot more, because it's kind of more old fashioned with pencils, papers, erasers, and you've got a sheet to fill out and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of it boils down to you have dice and you roll them, and you have something that you want to do, and the dice will say you did it well or you failed to do it, and that's the real kind of I suppose core of what the system is. No matter what kind of system you're playing, that's it. And then on one side you have the players who are like playing through the story, and on the other side you have the GM who's running the story, and it's just a matter of like figuring out, can someone do this? If they can, how difficult is it? Or on the fly coming up with rules to enable them to even try and do that, you know? And it's the same any board game. Any board game you pick up, you've got like a rule book that could be anywhere from 5 to 20 pages long. You know, I've played things like Sight, which is quite difficult, and then I've played things like Settlers of Catan, which is like just 1 page. So it's pretty kind of a wide range there.
Okay, and suppose the reason that we kind of talked about doing the episode this way was you've mentioned you've been running online sessions for your RPG game. So how do you go about doing that?
So I've been playing online for 2 main kinds of systems. One of them is the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which came out about 5 to 6 years ago, and it's gone from strength to strength over the years. I think the advent of Twitch and YouTube and stuff are just being able to show more people enjoying the hobby. And the other game that I've been playing is Warhammer Fantasy, which is I think it's the 4th edition. I think that's done by Cubicle 7, which actually moved their offices to Ireland in 2018, I think. So they're actually like, say, developing more of the game in Meath or somewhere in Ireland, which is it's a cool thing to have like a local company essentially. And so normally you're kind of, everyone's around the table and you're face to face, so you can see ticks and you can see people kind of say if they're dropping off or whatever. So with this whole lockdown, we started moving online, and there's a couple of different tools that we use. So for D&D and for Warhammer, there's a site called Roll20.
Right.
And that's it's a free to use site. There are subscriptions that you can get for like extra features and all that, but the base one is free, and it's got a bunch of I suppose community content is generated for Roll20. So you can log in, and if you're going to say, I'm going to run a game, and then you pick what character sheet you're running, or say like what character sheet you want your players to have access to, which is essentially telling Roll20 what game I'm running. So the character sheet for any system is going to be different. So a bunch of different community members have made all of these kind of character sheets that are pretty well scripted. So you just put in some figures, and a lot of other stuff is kind of cascades and figures itself out. And then that enables you to upload maps, so you can see characters move around on the map, or you can manually move them. You can put in enemies, you can fill in different statistics, and you're essentially playing with almost like you're developing the game as you go, kind of like almost like software. There is a bit of a learning curve to it, but most of the time you're just using the basic things of putting up a map and asking your players what they're doing. So Roll20 is one way of doing it, but if you can screen share and show somebody a map you've got in Paint, that probably works as well.
Okay, and I just wanted to ask, like, who would you tend to play with, and would you play with large groups or smaller groups? Like,
normally, most groups I play with would be about maybe 5 to 6 people, and because I used to run for one of the local game stores in Limerick, there's a good, I don't know, 50 or 60 people I know of that play RPGs. So anytime I start a new game, I try and bring in 1 or 2 new people So, for example, in the Warhammer Fantasy game I'm playing, I brought in my brother to play that because he played the Warhammer Total War games on Steam, and I said, "Oh, at least he knows something about that world." So
He'd know the armies and that kind of
he'd
stuff.
know,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. But like the rules were all new to him, so he was completely new to that system. I was completely new as a GM for that system. I'd never run that system before, and the other 5 players that I brought in, they'd all played D&D, but they'd never played Warhammer Fantasy. So I thought, like, we're doing the online thing new, so I might as well do the Warhammer Fantasy thing new, and we can kind of spend a week or two getting over the bumps, learning the game together as we go. And if we make mistakes, everybody's new, so we don't really care.
Okay, and
So,
I know you've been gaming for a while since before the lockdown began, but do you find it's kind of helped you cope with kind of restrictions and stuff? Like, has your life been impacted by the way of the world now that much? Or
for me, not too much because I'm a software developer by trade, so it wasn't too much. Like for my actual job, I still work and I can work from home, so it hasn't impacted me too much that way. And because I can still play with most of my friends, it seems to work fine. But there's I definitely have reduced the amount of games I play within a month. Before it could have, say, most of these games have gone about, say, 2 to 3 hours. So sometimes instead of going to a pub, I'll go to a friend's house and we have a couple of cans and sit back and we're playing a Star Wars game for like 3 hours. Or on a weekend, it could be like a 5-hour session and we order takeout in the middle of it or something, And so it could have been anywhere from like 10 to 14 games in a month that I was either playing in or running, and I'd run stuff for like one of the local game stores and get a bunch of people in as well. But now it's more like probably like 6 or 7, because there's a bit more work involved in running something online than it is running something face to face. You're kind of it's like you're kind of preparing a bit more maps, and because everything's based from your computer, you don't have like written notes and stuff. You're bouncing from like one notepad document to some other PDF here, and it's just it's just a bit more hassle, really. I think, especially when people have like audio issues, or they can't connect, or their internet goes down, and you got all these other things on top of it as well.
yeah, I have to imagine, like, because I have played the odd D&D game, and like part of the fun is just relaxing and the bantering, and like you said, even when something goes wrong, it's about you coming together. If there's technical issues, or even if you're in a group but you're at the computer on your own, something would get lost a bit in translation, wouldn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And you end up as well because when you're face to face, there's like kind of there's like kind of a flow to the conversation. People can see when someone is about to stop talking, and they'll be able to like jump in and keep it going. When you're online, you don't see that kind of opening, so people talk over each other a bit more. There's like sometimes it's harder to hear when someone's saying something. People can't have like a side conversation to decide what they're doing while everybody else is trying to listen to the GM to figure out exactly what the story is doing, So it's there's all that kind of stuff that crops in there.
Yeah, well, I imagine that's difficult, but still, it's great that you've managed to keep these going throughout the last 2 or 3 months, and also bring in new people. Like, because I've been talking to like gaming shops on the show before, and like the amount of board games that people have been buying have just shot up. So, like, if there was someone who hasn't played an RPG before, where do you think would be a lovely place for them to start?
So with fifth edition came out about 5-6 years ago.
This
I
is
think,
D&D, is it?
yeah, this is
Yeah.
5th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And it released a new edition, and the rules are pretty streamlined, and it's very easy to get into the game. There's a bunch of free resources there. They've got a system reference document, the SRD. So if you Google D&D 5th edition SRD, you'll find this free open source document that gives you all the basic rules and a bunch of the character classes and all that kind of stuff. And so like if you wanted to like actually run games and GM them, this would give you everything you needed to do to kind of kickstart a game. And then there's a bunch of free resources that, say, Wizard of the Coast and other companies have been, say, adding online to help with people being in lockdown. As kind of, say, you can get like adventures and one shots and all of this stuff for free. And the thing about the thing about D&D is, if you're thinking that you might enjoy a game, there's bound to be 2 or 3 of your mates who are thinking the same thing, and there's probably 1 or 2 that they would enjoy it, and it never even crossed their mind because they wouldn't know where to start. So a lot of it is really, it's like if you've got, say, 6 close friends, one person just needs to spend an hour or 2 looking up. It's like, okay, how would you start it? And because of the advent of, like, say, Twitch and YouTube, there's so much content out there that teaches you how to run a game. You know, you could, if you like, I think there's some guys on YouTube, say like Matt Colville is a good one. He's got like a whole 50 videos on how to be a really good GM. You could look up D&D Beyond, which is kind of like they're kind of associated with Wizard of the Coast, so that they digitize a lot of their assets. But they do videos pretty much every day on YouTube, and they'll kind of teach you how to run a game. There's Critical Role, which is like a bunch of voice actors and actresses who have been running a D&D game for the last like 4 years or more, moving from one to the next. And they used to work with Geek and Sundry, but I think they've gone off on their own now. Mm-hmm. And just even watching how, say, Matt Mercer runs his game is a really good kind of educational thing of how someone else could run a game. And as I said, it's like it's just a matter of learning and not being afraid to make mistakes. So like myself and 5 of my friends, we'd never played the Warhammer games before, and like Warhammer Fantasy RPGs, they've been around since the 80s, and it's on their 4th edition now, so they've gone through quite a number of things. But it's the fact that of all 6 of us, none of us had played it, we pretty much got together and like read through the book. It was like step by step, how do you make a character for this game? We're in a fight, how do fights work? And it's like you go to that part of the book and you work through it in a step by step way. And it takes a while early on, but after about maybe 3 or 4 games, it's like you just becomes instinct, you know, and you just know that you need to roll this dice and look at this number and figure out where it's going.
Excellent. Well, I must say, because I know D&D players, and whenever I asked about Dungeons and Dragons, usually every player has like 2 or 3 mad stories up their sleeve from some time when a campaign went wrong or anything like that. Would you have any like strange or crazy stories to mind from your role-playing game history?
Yeah, there's a couple. There was a time where I tried to like I wanted to bring a tank into a game, so I created a tank for the guys to fight with, and one of the guys had a weapon that pretty much exploded in a massive fireball if he got like a nat 20, which is a critical hit, which is like on a d20 20-sided die. If you roll 20, like mad things can happen. So this guy had a weapon that if he crit on a d20, it would explode in a fireball, and he managed to squeeze himself into the tank and use about 3 of the abilities of other players in the team, all stacking him up. But when it came to it, he rolled a 20. So it's like a really condensed explosion in the big metal tank. And it was like, that was supposed to be a boss that was meant to last about 20 minutes, and they destroyed it in 5, you know? Like, there's things like that happen. Say in the latest game of the like Warhammer Fantasy, we were going through a combat encounter, and my younger brother, who hadn't really been playing too much RPGs at all before, himself and another guy got into a fight with a couple of these cultists. And these cultists are not fighters. They've got like really crappy daggers, and
I remember. These are the Chaos guys, right?
Yeah, but like these ones were like, they didn't even know they were Chaos. They were just like worshipping some other kind of strange kind of figure. So my brother and another guy decided to encounter these guys and try and take him out quickly. And one of the cultists gets off a lucky attack on my brother's character, and I'm like, okay, how do crits work in this game? And figure out, okay, she hit you on the arm, and then roll dice here, and it's like, okay, so, ooh, that looks like a nasty crit. It does X amount of damage. Seems like you're bleeding out. Oh, I think she broke your arm. Ooh, looks like it's a really bad break. And then later on, we're working out that, like, this guy who, like, he's meant to be an archer, just got his arm broken, and it's like his arm is now broken for like 40 days. So how does that work in the game when you've got an archer whose right arm is now broken for 40 days? And it's because that system is a lot more gritty. It becomes a thing of like, well, you have to keep it strapped up, because if you don't, it could actually set badly, and for years you could have this really bad set broken arm, which is affecting your archery skills, you know. There was another player in that game who was playing a witch, so trying to mess around with the magic and stuff. And for Warhammer, they've got this really kind of heavy, almost Spanish Inquisition style of hatred of witches, and so you have to be very careful. She's trying to be really secretive about it. But the player hadn't really cast magic before, so they rolled magic to just open a couple of, to unlock a door. It was a very small minor spell. She rolled super high. I think it was like 99 or something on a D100. So it's like an automatic crit, but because it was so great, for Warhammer, it's the opposite way around. Rolling low is really good, rolling high is really bad.
Right.
So I think it was like a 1 or a 2 or something on the roll, which means it was super, super successful and a critical magic roll. But the character's like a young kind of witch who doesn't really understand her magic too much, and when you get a surge of magic that's like really, really good or really bad, it's kind of like the same thing. You still, the magic goes out of control, so you don't, like, you're not able to contain it, you know. And just looking at this, and it's like I think if the rules had worked out, and we weren't really sure of them at the time, the character would just, I think they started bleeding profusely from like their eyes, ears, and mouth. And within about 2 or 3 kind of turns, that character would have died because they just bled
because they
out.
tried to open a door.
Because they tried to open a door. You know?
Well, I mean, that's exactly the fun of it, though. It's like, as opposed to like a traditional board game, really anything can happen, and that's the fun of it, right?
Yeah, and it's not just like that anything can happen, but it's that your actions have an impact in ways that are unforeseen. So in the 5th edition game that a friend of mine is running, we're all playing like fighters in this kind of arena place. And it's kind of, I'd say you would think with a game like that, it's just combat after combat after combat. But if you ever watched like wrestling or whatever like that, you know that combat's only a part of it, and it's the stories behind it and why the people are fighting, and the mythology that kind of creeps in, you know, and the kind of the rumors and all that kind of stuff behind it is what makes it watchable.
Yeah.
So that's what started happening in this game, and it became less about just fighting in an arena and more about why we're fighting, to get revenge and setting up storylines and plot points and taking out certain people. And then one of the guys started, he went into Photoshop and he started making like magazine covers. So like you've got like say 5 or 6 characters in the game, and they all had their own magazine cover, or they ended up on a card or something, you know. And but because he did that, it's now saying that, oh, so there's this publishing kind of company within this world, and it makes that magazine, you know. Or like one of the guys decided that he wanted to be kind of a gunslinger. So at that point, it's like, okay, if you're a gunslinger, then guns exist in the world. By making the character a gunslinger, he just made guns exist in the world. Same when someone, if they choose to be like a cleric of a certain god, they're saying that god exists in the universe that the GM is creating. So you have such a massive impact and control on the game you're playing is what makes it kind of really, really interesting.
Excellent. Well, we are just about out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to say on the air before we wrap?
I would mention that when the lockdown starts easing and you can kind of go back and shop again, to give your local game stores a bit of love. So in Limerick you have the Gathering, and I think in Dublin you've got like it's Gamers World, I think. And there's a couple of other places
on Parnell Street. Yeah, that's a good place.
Yeah, and you got a couple of other places in Cork like Sandbox and all that.
Yeah,
and the thing is, like,
we've got Tabletop. They've been on with us.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, a lot of these companies will, like, a lot of their bread and butter comes in the summer when they go to different conventions and they're kind of like selling a lot of stock or buying a lot of stock, or just tournaments that happen throughout the month, And it's like, because of the impact of all this, a lot of those tournaments haven't gone, or a lot of those conventions had to be postponed. I know, like, say, there was a Dublin Comic Con that was meant to go on in March and has postponed, so it never went in March, and it meant to possibly go on in August, but who knows what that's about. And there's a Cork RPG Con that should be going on in November. So it's a lot of things. Like, if you're going to buy something, maybe don't buy it on Amazon, and go into a shop and talk to people and see if they give you an advice on what game you'd like to play and what game that they think you might play well with, and buy it from your local shop.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there is a social aspect to it as well. So going to a shop where they kind of know what they're about and they play the games is much more a part of the rewarding process than, like you said, if you ordered it, like.
Yeah, and it's like, it'll probably cost you a little bit extra, or a lot more extra, depending on what you're getting. But you're supporting a local business, and it's always good, so that in a couple of years' time, you know where to go for more information, or if you need something specific to a certain game, you might have contacts that you can get access to.
Excellent. Well, Ray, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, it was good. It's always good to chat. I like chatting about my hobbies.
Excellent. And you presented it very well. Thank you very much. We will take a quick break now, even. And after the break, we will have Brandon Browne on, who is a secondary school student, talking about the video games he's been playing during the lockdown. So we'll be back in a sec. Stay with us.
Alright, so you're listening to the podcast, you're like, hey, I'm not in Ireland, how do I get in touch? Well, TuneIn has you covered. That's how you can check us out live when we're on the radio. You go to TuneIn and download the app, or you can check out the live streams on nerdtoknowmedia.com or Phoenix 92.5 FM. If you want to get in contact with us, it's very easy. Nerd to Know Media everywhere. Nerd to Know Media on Twitter, Nerd to Know Media Instagram, Nerd to Know Media on Twitch, Nerd to Know Media at gmail.com if you want to reach out via email. Hope to hear from you soon.
Are you a nerd? Do you like hearing about a bizarre range of topics from the world of nerd? Does your heart and hairstyle still belong in the nostalgic 90s? Are you a sucker for spooky weirdo things? Well, whether you're a hardcore nerd or a vanilla ice baby, Straight Outta Canto is the podcast radio show for you! Straight Outta Canto, that's Kanto, Ireland's #1 show for nerd culture, nightmares, nostalgia, and more. Straight Outta Canto.
And welcome back to the Game Corner. My next guest is Brandon Browne, who is a secondary school student who wants to talk about the games he's been playing since the lockdown. Brandon, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks very much. How about yourself?
Very well, thank you. And thank you so much for reaching out to us. You reached out to us kind of over Instagram and stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, I seen an ad, so I just thought that I'd give you a show.
Excellent. And thank you very much for doing that. Now, before we get into the games you've been talking about, I just want to ask, you're a secondary school student, so how has your life been impacted by the lockdown and all that kind of stuff so far?
It hasn't been too bad. I mean, the pressures of school and all have kind of been taken away. I mean, less routine and all that. But still, like, getting work done, all doing house jobs and all that.
And I'm guessing you're still kind of doing online classes or all that kind of stuff, like?
I had done a couple of them, but my school didn't really get into online classes. We kind of just done, they just gave us work, so we just done the work and sent it in.
Okay. And do you prefer, like, kind of the working from home, or do you miss going out to the school and all that kind of stuff?
I didn't really feel like that I worked well from home. I thought I'd be better off in school.
Yeah, I think you're not the first secondary school kid we've had on. A lot of people have been saying they miss kind of physically going there, like.
it's just hard to concentrate at home, like,
Mm.
you know, because I've a lot of younger brothers and sisters, so like I might have to just stop what I'm doing like at a moment's notice and then just go and mind kids and stuff.
Yeah. Oh no, I completely get that. Like, I have a young baby at home, like, and even just kind of everyone being in the same space all the same time, that's kind of stressful, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, it's a bit annoying being cooped up together, you know.
yeah, exactly. But when you reached out to me, you said you've been playing games for like 10 years, right?
Yeah, well, the first ever kind of experience I've had with playing games was I was probably maybe 3 or 4. I got a DS for Christmas, the original DS, and I had Mario Bros, New Super Mario Bros. So that was like one of the first games I've ever played in my life. Like I still have it; it's in my drawer over there. But yes, that's kind of where it all kind of started off.
You
And
are so
then
lucky. The DS was such an awesome console to start on.
yeah, well, like at that time when I was younger, when I used to play all them games, I had never really kind of understood, you know, stories or anything. I would just, you know, play the levels.
Mm.
So when I moved on to an Xbox 360, I had been playing games, but I never finished any that I played. So that's why I'm kind of revisiting them all now while we're in the lockdown, so I can go back and, you know, the nostalgia and all, and then finish the games that I never originally finished.
Excellent. That's a lovely idea. Like,
Yeah.
and so tell us, you've got 2 games in mind that you really wanted to talk about on the air. What's the first one?
The first one was Assassin's Creed 2.
Okay, I've played Assassin's Creed 1, but not 2, so it's a very kind of open world, sort of big on exploring type game, right?
Yeah, oh my God, it was amazing. I finished it last night at 2 in the morning. I went and yeah. I had gotten pretty far into it as a child, but like I kept getting stuck at this one particular part. So I just keep replaying it until I got to that part, and then I'd never ever finished it. So like yesterday was the first time I finished it, and it left on like a bit of a cliffhanger. And I don't have the next Assassin's Creed game, so I was a bit annoyed that the story kind of left me like that.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I've had like, especially with the Final Fantasies, I've had loads of games where you just get stuck at one point and you just put it down for a while and you get really frustrated that you haven't got past that point, you know?
Yeah, because I can remember looking at YouTube videos on how to like get past this specific parkour section, but I didn't really understand any of the mechanics of the game, so I was never able to like do it properly. But then when I started playing it again, I kind of understood more of how to play it.
Okay,
Was easier and all.
well, just to back up a bit there, because we have a few listeners who are like brand new to gaming and stuff. What is Assassin's Creed in a nutshell like?
It's basically like the world is kind of, well, it's kind of set back in like the past. So Assassin's Creed 2 took place during like the Renaissance. So you play as Ezio, he's kind of arrogant at the start, but you kind of see him mature throughout the game because his family was killed by Templars, who were like the bad guys, and he's on like a hunt for vengeance. But like in doing so, he stumbles upon like these like ancient artifacts and all, and he's looking to discover about like the Apple of Eden and all this sort of stuff. So it's like it's really good. I'd recommend it.
So, like, because you mentioned the historical setting, like, do you think there's a lot you can learn from playing about the Renaissance and that kind of stuff? Like,
Yeah, actually, because Ezio's like friend in Assassin's Creed is Leonardo da Vinci.
no way.
So yeah, so he's one of the main characters.
That
It's
is
pretty
absolutely
cool, yeah.
mad. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And actually,
and like,
so you go first.
sorry,
No, you go first there.
and even in the later Assassin's Creed games, like Assassin's Creed 2 or 3, sorry, which is in like the American Revolution, like you talk with Paul Revere and all them and George Washington. So it's really nice to have that kind of interest, if that's what you're looking for.
So it's not kind of like a mindless action game. Like, there is real kind of cool world building to
Yeah,
get lost in. Like,
you kind of learn about it from a third perspective.
And can I ask, is it still, because I played the first one way back when, is it still using the conceit of like you're being sent back in time to your ancestors, like that kind of thing?
Yeah, like the main kind of modern character his name is Desmond. He like goes through this machine to like relive his memories from his ancestors. So they're all like in his bloodline apparently. So
Okay.
it starts off with like all the different characters, and like if you look up a family tree, it's like all the protagonists from the games are in his bloodline.
Okay. And
Yeah.
can I just ask then about the actual gameplay? Because this isn't like an action, like kind of punch your way through type thing. There's proper stealth involved, isn't there?
Not so much in the earlier games. It was kind of hard to stealth because the only thing you really had was throwing knives.
Yeah, I suppose.
But in more of the later games, there was specific stealth modes and all. So it's
But you
easier.
know what I mean, like about how
Yeah.
like you can walk through crowds and blend in and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's not like
hay bales and
Castlevania,
stuff.
like, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Awesome. And can I ask, because I know you mentioned you kind of played this before and you've come back to it. Why now
Yeah.
have you decided to play this game?
I was just looking back through all the games I had on the Xbox One, and I had downloaded from ages ago. I had Assassin's Creed 2,
Yeah.
and I was just thinking about it, and I went into it and I found my old save files and stuff. So I kind of just started again, you know, tried to learn the story and what actually happened, because I never really understood what was happening, and I just kind of got a bit addicted to it.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's kind of like Skyrim in that way where you can get really lost in the world more than the story itself, you know?
Yeah, like at the moment, I think I'm gonna try and 100% the game, like get all the collectibles and stuff. Because I don't know, I just would really like to have that like, to say about myself.
Yeah. I've got to say, it's very rarely do I like actually 100% it if I've got the end of the story in mind. What kind of stuff do you have to do to actually get all, like, is it side quests or is it finding things? Like, what do you have to do?
So along the way, I've kind of been, you know, I've had that thought in my mind. Okay, well, we're gonna 100% at the end.
Mm.
So like around the whole cities, like Venice and all, there's like feathers everywhere, and you have to collect 100 feathers. Then you have to do like 20 little, like challenges and stuff, and races and events, stuff like that.
Okay, so it's proper value for money, like.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I think I
Ex-
got it on sale like years ago, maybe 8 years ago.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, like, because you kind of mentioned it already. There's like a whole host of Assassin's Creed. There's 5 or 6 now, isn't there?
I don't know. I think there's maybe 11.
No way.
Or maybe 11. Yeah, maybe 11 coming out this year, something like that.
Oh my
But
gosh.
like I'm lost for words actually thinking about it. Like it's just amazing.
Well, I mean, I think it's a great pick, like for net playing now while we're all kind of locked inside. Like, if you had to sort of
Yeah.
pitch it to like other people who hadn't heard of it or maybe heard of it and just hadn't played it, what's the really special thing about this game? Like,
Well, what's special to me about it is I got at least about 20 hours out of it already. You know, like you can like sit down and when you look at the map, you know, you have to go to all the viewpoints, and then you just see all these like dots in your map. You just go around completing everything, doing all the missions. You just kind of sit there getting lost. Like last night when I completed it, I was like, okay, I'll do one more mission, and then I just finished the game 2 hours later.
oh yeah, then another, and then another, and then another. Like,
Yeah, it's just
it's funny actually. I meant
nice.
because when you picked that game, I meant to ask you. Like, we had an actor called Saoirse Shanae on last week who said that she finds kind of the big open world games very stressful because she kind of gets lost in them. Like, why do you find these kind of big open world, loads and loads of side quest games relaxing? Like,
Oh, I'm not sure. I just think it's really kind of fun to be able to just do whatever you want.
yeah.
Like, if you really want, you could just go around and kill all the guards that you see and all, or you can run across the rooftops and stuff. It's just a nice little thing to be able to do. Like, to get like the best armor in the game, you have to do like 6 like puzzles, assassin tombs they're called. So like being able to have the choice to do these like tombs and get the armor and stuff, and like spend money to get all the different weapons. thought it's really fun because it's very personal to you, if you get me.
Yeah. So you
When you're
like
playing
the
games
kind
with
of the
these.
freedom and customization it allows you, like.
Yeah, because if you play other games, like, I'm just going to mention Mario because it came to my head.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's experience is going to be more or less the same. But if you're playing all these open world games, like, you know, Assassin's Creed or Grand Theft Auto or whatever, it's like your experience is going to be very specific to you, depending on how you like to play games.
Okay, that's a really good point. Like, it's like not like an on the rails, every story is the same thing. You like it to be your story that you play it however you want with a character that is customizable to you.
Yeah, like this story is linear, but you can choose what you want to do, whatever you want. Like, it's just, it's cool to be able to choose what you want to do instead of kind of thinking about it as a chore. You know, I have to do this mission, you know.
Yeah, it's properly immersive. Like.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I may ask you more questions on that later, but I believe you also have a second pick, right?
Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
it was Black Ops 1, right?
Yeah. Call of
Okay,
Duty.
so Call of Duty Black Ops. I have played Call of Duty games before. I haven't played Call of Duty Black Ops. Like, what's the game in a nutshell? Like,
Well, mainly I'm going to kind of talk about the campaign. So that
grand.
was
So,
the main like point of nostalgia for me when I got the game. But so in the campaign, you basically play as protagonist Mason, who's a brainwashed soldier in kind of the Vietnam era. So he's getting brainwashed, and you're kind of gone back in his memories, and you know, reliving the missions that led up to the point where he is now. So you're kind of trying to uncover this like Russian secret that they have planted in your brain. Like, so they're asking about the numbers and stuff. So they're trying to uncover all the secrets that they planted into him. And then the main character, that isn't him, like a side character, Reznov, turns out just like part of his mind. So you go through the whole game thinking of, you know, Reznov, but he was just imagining Reznov, you know.
okay, so it's like a sort of Winter Soldier thing. It properly plays with the idea that we can't trust the character you're playing, like, and what he sees, like.
Yeah, like until about halfway through the game, you kind of starting to wonder, you know, what's happening, because there was one mission where you sit down with JFK,
What?
and yeah, and he sends you on a mission, and he has a hallucination. He has a hallucination where he holds a gun up to JFK's face, and you're kind of left wondering, like, you know, why did that happen? But it all gets explained in the end.
Okay, all right. So it's not
Yeah.
like, because I've played Call of Duty games before, and when we talk about Call of Duty, they mostly talk about the multiplayer. So there is like a proper story you can get your teeth into, like.
Yeah, the main sticking point for the older Call of Duties was the campaign, I think.
Okay.
I wasn't really old enough to kind of be immersed in the multiplayer.
Right. Okay. And like, it's still like a proper kind of shooter type game, though, right?
Yeah, it's kind of gory and bloody and all, and it's just it's cool to, you know, see all these like battles going on and these like black operations, you know, that just weren't marked down,
Right.
and just be this kind of super soldier, I suppose.
Okay, you mentioned the Vietnam War as well. So is this game set in the present then, or is it like kind of set back in the 60s?
Yeah, it's around 60s, 70s, I think.
Okay.
It's the first game.
Okay, well then, are you kind of drawn to games that like have a different historical setting, or is that just like a coincidence? Like,
I think actually, now that I think about it, that's just a bit of a coincidence.
okay,
But like the main reason I picked those two games is because I'd never completed them because I was too young to kind of really understand.
yeah.
And they've like a lot of nostalgia for me.
Ah, that's fantastic.
Because with Call of Duty Black Ops, you know, it just reminds me of like couch gaming with my like friends. You know, I'll like look around the maps and stuff, kind of getting freaked out in the zombies mode and stuff like that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So, do you play multiplayer on it as well, or is it just the campaign?
Well, the servers are kind of empty on
Oh,
Call of
really?
Duty Black Ops 1. Yeah, so you can't really play multiplayer unless you want to play local.
Well,
But
I mean,
the other
does it still offer you a local of playing with 2 controllers on the one console? Because I know they're kind of phasing that out now.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Like the odd time I play with my brother, I'll try and do like, we'll do sniper battles and stuff, and just kind of have a bit of fun.
Yeah. It's a real shame though, because like I have loads of games from like, the early 2000s and stuff that the multiplayers are just dead unless you play with bots or something like that. Have you run into that problem with a lot of your
Yeah.
games? Like,
Well, not so much, but a lot of the older games that I have, I have a couple of old Call of Duty games. Like you can't really play on servers. Like actually, only recently, I think PewDiePie accidentally uploaded a Call of Duty Black Ops 1 video, and the servers like kind of got reignited for a while.
oh, I see. Okay, so
Yeah,
they still work, but they just need the people to be there playing it. Like,
yeah. Like there's a counter at the bottom that says there's 1 million people online, but it was debunked as a myth, so nobody's actually online.
yeah.
And the
And
people that are online are usually hackers.
oh, I see. So have you ever run into
Yeah.
problems with that before? Like,
Not personally, but like I've seen YouTube videos where like they're going into lobbies and they're just getting hacked the whole time.
yeah,
People
a
spawning
friend of
nukes and
mine,
everything.
like Luke Riley, who was one of our guests on a previous episode, he's a streamer, and he's had problems where, because obviously its streams are open to the public, he's had loads of people joining his
Yeah,
party who have like only played 1 hour, but they have the max stats and all that stuff.
yeah, it's insane. Like
Yeah.
I remember one time, maybe 11, my friend he installed USB mods onto the Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the first Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
And it was just hilarious to like run around in these like dead lobbies, just blowing everything up and having like hit markers everywhere and all.
Yeah. That's absolutely mad, like. But like, is there still enough variety on it on the local play? Like, what kind of, you said there's zombie, but what kind of game options are there? Like,
Well, you can play like traditional multiplayer,
Mm.
or you can play like the zombies, which is kind of round based. So
Yeah.
you go up the rounds, you get better guns and stuff. But I think the newer zombie games are better, like Call of Duty Zombies.
Okay, so like, with the zombies, it's the 2 of you against everyone else. It's like kind of rounds, like.
Yeah, so as you go up the rounds, the zombies, they run faster, they hit harder, they spawn. There's more than spawn at the same time.
Yeah.
It just basically gets harder. So like, you could try your best to get to like around 100, or you can try and do all the Easter eggs and stuff.
What's the furthest you've ever got in? What's the best round you've got?
I haven't really tried to get higher rounds, but I think the highest I ever got was Call of Duty Black Ops 3. I got to around, I think, 32
That's really
on
good.
one of on one of the harder maps. But we weren't trying to get to the higher rounds. We were kind of trying to keep the rounds low.
Yeah. And would you
It
do
was
it
fun.
like, so since you play 3, would you still do a lot of online gaming then, or?
In the time, occasionally I'll play some online games with my friends. Like, Warzone, sometimes Fortnite, we play custom games. Rainbow Six, all them kind of games.
Okay. And have you been playing those kind of games more since you've been out of school, like, or?
Not really. I've kind of been revisiting all the older games, just kind of playing by myself.
Okay.
Like, LA Noire, all that sort of stuff.
So really properly story heavy stuff, like.
Yeah, linear kind of immersive games.
Okay, awesome. Now, just to kind of bring this back round to where we started, what console do you play Black Ops 1 on, and who would enjoy it then?
I've been playing Black Ops 1 on the Xbox 360.
Right.
I think as long as you're looking for, well, it kind of covers all bases really. So there's content there for anyone who really wants it, if you get me.
Yeah, yeah. Is there because would you need to be really good at shooter games to play it, or is this somewhere people can start like?
I think it would be a good place to start, because if you're playing the campaign, there's different difficulty levels. Where like hop into zombies and you can improve your aim and stuff like that. It's
Okay.
a really good place to start before you go into these competitive matches in the newer games.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, like, I do play shooter games now and again, but I think when I try and bring my friends on, they're a bit intimidated by the online aspect of it. Like, you know, because other players will be already so good at it when you start. Like,
Yeah, like I think if you're new to all the shooter games, there's a bit of a steep learning curve because you need to improve aim, you need to have good awareness, all that sort of stuff. You need to know the meta a bit. It's kind of overwhelming for someone who might just start out because you don't know what guns are good, all that sort of stuff.
yeah. Awesome sauce. Well, in that case, Brandon, thank you very much for reaching out to us. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. Just before we go,
Thanks
the games...
very much for having me on.
Not at all. The games you recommended were Assassin's Creed 2 and Black Ops 1. They are on the Xbox One and Xbox 360. If you've enjoyed this, you can reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere like that. But for now, this has been the Game Corner, and one last time, Brandon, thank you very much.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.